With the new teaser trailer out for Dead by Daylight, everybody wants to know who the new killer is going to be. Hello everybody, and welcome to the second, and maybe last episode of Killer Potential, a show where I discuss the killers that we want to see in Dead by Daylight. I am Al, me so thorny. You can find me on Twitch. But enough about that, let's get into it. It seems like the DBD community has really wanted this morphing madhouse for some time now. There was a lot of talk about him right before the Silent Hill release. That's right, I'm talking about...
Well, I'm Pennywise, the dancing clown.
Oh yeah, the monster that feeds on fear and is tormented by turtles? Pennywise. First, let's address the fact that Pennywise isn't actually a clown. He's a creature of the deadlights, and he morphs himself into people's greatest fears. I can't see the creative team at Behavior wanting to make Pennywise morph constantly, just because the coding for that would be ridiculous. Although it would be really cool. So instead, let's focus on how Pennywise feeds off fear. I see Pennywise playing a lot like the Doctor. You give him a fear meter, it's got 3 levels, and as the survivors gain fear points, they also get hindrances from that. Fear points, of course, would be gathered from chases, hits, and interacting with balloons. Balloons would be Pennywise's secondary power, and they'd act very similar to hag traps. He'd place them around the map, and as they're interacted with, they pop. They would give the survivor more fear points, but they'd also allow Pennywise to monitor gens and close loops. As you get fear points, you get more hindrances. And at the first level, your hindrance would be very similar to Thantrophobia. It'd slow down your survivors on healing, repairing, and vaulting. The second, very similar to Doctor, would just cause them to scream and reveal their location to Pennywise constantly. And the third would cause hallucinations of Pennywise to appear, and he would run at you swinging his arms, or he could cross by windows, or, he'd walk behind trees. But basically, they'd also give off their own little terror radius. Now, I've seen other killer concepts that suggest that Pennywise should create illusionary survivors, or possibly that he should even disguise himself as a survivor. And although these ideas are really awesome and they're really original, I see how they're also broken whenever you have a survivor with friends group. But let me know what you think in the comments. Perks. Let's talk perks. Perks, perks, perks. Obviously, we have to hit that famous tagline.
If you lived here, you'd be home by now. Come join the clown nest. You'll float down here. We'll float down here.
So why not make this his first perk? At the beginning of the match, the killer can see the basement hooks for 30, 60, or 120 seconds. And anytime a survivor enters the basement, they let out a scream, revealing their location to Pennywise. It's not too strong, it's not too weak, and really, survivors are trying to avoid the basement anyways, so I don't see them running down there often. But if you have a killer that's trying to play a basement hook game, they get an advantage from this perk. Pennywise's second perk should be called Real Enough for You.
This isn't real enough for you, Billy. I'm not real enough for you. It was real enough for Georgie.
And basically what it should do is that when Pennywise hooks a survivor, it reveals all the other survivors' auras to each other and hides Pennywise's. But those survivors' auras are disguised as Pennywise's aura for the next 5, 7, or 10 seconds. That way it creates confusion on where Pennywise actually is. And then last, we have Feast or Famine, a perk that gives Pennywise a boost to his speed and his just basic M1 attack whenever the gates are opened or the hatch is opened. That way he gets to make a big last-ditch effort to try to make a sacrifice. A Mori for Pennywise is an obvious choice. As much as I'd love to see the dancing meme, really I think what he needs to do is just lift his victim up, unhinge his jaw, and have them gaze deeply down into the deadlights. Before latching onto him. Although it would be really cool if he could also leave their body just floating in the air. I think level design for Pennywise is a no-brainer also. It's got to be the dairy sewers, and it's got to be similar to Hawkins' laboratory. A lot of really tight corridors, but a couple different chambers. But the main focus is that you have to have that really big chamber with the collection of junk and all the floating children. I think that would look so epic in DVD. I don't really expect us to see the likes of this red-haired Reaper entering the fog anytime soon, but I could be mistaken. We did end up with 2 chainsaw-wielding hillbillies, 2 stealthy stabbers, 2 invisible ghosts, and 2 medical practitioners. But as always, that's just my opinion, and I would love to know what you think. So feel free to leave a comment or catch us on the Twitch. Until then, keep wandering the fog. Oh yeah, the monster that feeds on fear and is tormented by turtles. Turtles. I like turtles.